as compared to the fully computerized election. Siyempre po magkakaroon po tayo, Your Honor, ng mas mahabang period ng mga guro, and therefore katulad po na nangyari sa amin, nagdagdag po kami ng kanilang honoraria. Noong nakarang eleksyon, yung mga nasirang makina, nagdagdag po tayo sa mga mahigit 2,000 guro po natin. Kapag po tayo ay hybrid, Your Honor, tayo po ay gagastos ng, pasensya na po, 42.3 billion pesos. Kapag po fully computerized only, Your Honor, tayo po ay gagastos ng 32 billion pesos.
But sir, no matter what the cost, for as long as there would be trust and acceptability on the Filipino people as to the result, I think the question of cost is immaterial. Anyway, do you recommend? I still have 56 seconds. Do you recommend for a hybrid so that we can do the necessary preparation for the bill, so that when we are going to file it, there will be 2.5 years more to go? We don't want to file the bill wherein the span of time is so short.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, so long as we are to increase the honoraria of teachers and electoral board members and other poll workers. That's very, very important because sobra pong tiring yung magiging trabaho po nila at medyo mas hahaba po yung pagboto po nila.
Siguro, my colleagues will agree also that no matter what the cost is, for as long as it would be a true, honest, and reflect the sentiments of our electorate, I think that would be okay with the House or with Congress. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman of the Commission on Election. Mr. Chair, thank you
very much
for the opportunity.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Majority Leader Walter Palma. To proceed, may we call on Deputy Minority Leader Franz Castro for her interpolation. Please proceed, Kong Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kanina pa po ako natutuwa sa binabanggit ng ating chairman ng Commission on Election kaugnay ng pagpapahalaga nila doon sa ating mga electoral board which are composed of mostly teachers, mula sa chairman ay mula dun sa chairperson ng electoral board hanggang sa third member. Ang tanong ko lang po kaugnay dito sa mapopospone na barangay SK election. So ano po yung plano ng Comelec, Mr. Chair, kaugnay ng honorarium? So kasi masyadong na-dismaya yung mga teachers doon sa nabawasan sila. So ang ibibigay niyo, nabawasan sila ng ng tax. So ang ibibigay niyo po ba sa election sa mga teachers natin ay yung neto? Neto na po o kakaltasan pa ninyo ng tax? Ano po ang plano, Mr. Chair?
Kung sakasakali po, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, matutuloy tayo ngayong December 2022, kakaltasan po sila ng 20%. So yung 10,000 magiging 8,000 na lamang po. Yung 6,000 babawasan pa rin po ng 20%. Subalit, kung mapopospone po ang eleksyon sa December of 2023 at pagbibigyan po yung ating computation, yung nasubmit po namin sa Kongreso, dahil ang Comelec na po ang magso-shoulder ng 20%. So yung pong 10,000, 9,000 sa second member, 10,000 sa third member, at 6,000 sa ibang poll workers, ay yun po ang eksaktong mabibigay na po sa kanila. Wala na pong bawas.
Positive po sa bahagi ng mga kaguruan yung ganung maibibigay na honorarium sa ating mga teachers. Thank you po, Mr. Chair. Now, yung second topic ko po, Mr. Chair, ay yung tungkol doon sa, anyway, karaniwan naman itong nangyayari, yung nagkakaroon ng mga black props tungkol doon sa opposition o yung naglalaban ng mga kandidato. Pero ito po, Mr. Chair, may binanggit ang chairman natin ng Comelec, lalong-lalo na po si Attorney John Rex Laudianco, kaugnay noong, yung peke na resolution daw ng Comelec kaugnay sa disqualification ng Makabayan Black. So, ano po ba yung mga pwede nating gawin sa mga ganitong mga pinalalabas na mga resolution na naka-identify po yung mga pangalan ng mga Comelec officials? Kasi hindi lang po yun sa Makabayan sa mga local election din, nangyayari din po yun.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Actually po, nire-refer po namin lahat yan sa National Bureau of Investigation. Lahat po ng mga matataas na opisyal ng Comelec, palagay ko po kahit ako ngayon, ay sinisimula na pong magkaroon na rin ng fake na signature. Nung nakaraang linggo lang po, may isang lumabas na isang memorandum daw mula sa aming law department upon verification, even from the heading and the signatures and the designation definitely not coming from Comelec. Lagi po kaming nabibiktima sa ganyan. And that's why we are really asking our law enforcement authorities, most especially po the NBI, na matulungan kami upang mahanap yung mga taong involved. Kalimitan po, Your Honor, Your Honors, lalabas po kalimitan yung mga ganyan, yung malapit na eleksyon, lalo na sa may mga kaso na pending, na naka-pending sa amin sa Comelec para palabasin na kunwari yung mismong yung isang tao, isang kandidato ay disqualified. So it will take time before they can verify before the Commission on Election whether indeed such a resolution exists or such a resolution was really promulgated by the Comelec. Ang ginagawa po kaagad namin Your Honors na lang ay pag may nagtanong sa amin, immediately we will issue clarification at the same time to the person involved and to the local Comelec involved. We will issue the necessary notice that there was no such a resolution.
So ito po particular sa Makabayan mga party list, ano na po ang development dito?
Yes po, ni-refer po namin yan for investigation and again, medyo naging maagap naman po kung napansin niyo po Your Honors, ang Commission Election, we immediately, not only our spokesperson but this representation, when he was still a commissioner, we immediately made a statement and denounced the existence of such a fake resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sana meron pa rin gawin na mas iba pang mga dapat na gawin kaugnay dito kasi hindi lang po Makabayan yung affected. Next question po, Mr. Chair, yung tungkol sa disenfranchisement nung mga voters, particular po sa mga teachers, lalong-lalo na yung mga nagbabantay sa election, electoral board, parang very short. Too short po yung binibigay ninyong yung binibigay natin na absentee local absentee voting. Minsan magkakaiba yung instructions ng mga Comelec during the briefing at saka doon sa instructions po ninyo. So marami pong teachers na gustong bumoto noon na member ng electoral board na hindi po nakaboto. So, pwede po bang gawin natin yung katulad noon na kung saan assigned si teacher ay doon na rin siya pwedeng bumoto at national level ang binoboto po yata ng mga teachers. So, hindi po sila pinayagan noong nakaraang election. Ano po yung pwede natin gawin doon, Mr. Chair?
Number one, Your Honors, we will commit that we will make it longer for the electoral board members to vote. Malas lalawakan po natin yung ating period sa local absentee voting. Number two po, Your Honor, so long, pwede po yung binabanggit po ninyo, basta po registered sila doon sa mismong municipality or district where they are registered.
Sa district, halimbawa sa Quezon City, voter ang teacher sa District 2, pero nagbabantay siya ng election sa District 1. So yung 30 minutes na travel time going to District 2 ay hindi na pwede yun, Mr. Chair. Paano yun?
We will allow that, Your Honor. Within the same district, Your Honor.
No, within the same
outside of the district.
Oo, ibang district po yun kasi si teacher sa District 1, boboto siya sa District 2. Kulang naman yung 30 minutes para mag-travel to and fro siya doon sa kanyang precinct.
In the next drafting of our guidelines, we will allow if so long as it is within the same city, Your Honor.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Yung next po natin ay yung tungkol doon sa AES. Alam natin na maraming palpak sa Smartmatic. May plano na po ba doon ang Comelec kaugnay nung automated pa rin pero hindi na dapat na Smartmatic? Meron bang ganung mga pag-aaral na ginagawa ang Comelec? Sir
We-
Chair.
Your Honors, we are fully aware of these issues being thrown and raised against our service provider. And definitely all of these issues and concerns raised by stakeholders and individuals will be seriously considered by Comelec when Comelec will proceed with the computerization of election in 2025. But we are going to hold, of course, an open and free bidding, and everybody will be entitled to participate. For the information of this body, one of the reform agenda of the chair is by January, we intend to conduct an election summit in which all participants, all stakeholders will be there. We would like to have a roadmap so that we can plan of what to use in the 2025 election. Of course, subject to the legislation that Congress will be passing, and at the same time, on the specifications and such other matters in relation to the automated election system.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko lang i-raise dito no yung pinaplano natin o yung mga proposal natin like hybrid na election wherein sa precinct level manual yung counting pero doon sa pagta-transmit ay automated. Dahil Mr. Chair, matagal na pong tinakwil ng iba't ibang mga bansa yung fully automated dahil nawawala doon yung sovereign will ng mga electoral at mga electoral. Kaya baka pwede rin natin pag-aralan yung ganong pamamaraan. Ano po masasabi natin doon, Mr. Chair?
Thank you very much, Your Honors. In one case, the case of Harry Roque versus the Commission on Election, na-sustain po kasi yung automation of election. However, Your Honor, that's the reason why the Comelec was in full support of the proposal before. When this representation was not yet a member of the commission, the Comelec was in full support of for the conduct of the hybrid election in the Senate. We do not know if there is a pending bill right now in Congress to conduct a hybrid election likewise in 2025 or in the next succeeding election. Indeed, so long as we are able to keep secret the ballots but making the process public and open, then that we will definitely support.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Bakabayan Black has a bill to that effect. Tinawag nga namin siyang tama bill. So that yung mga botante po, makikita nila talaga na talagang nabibilang or nakakount yung kanilang boto. Kasi dun sa present na automated system natin, yung AES, wala na eh. Pag ginanon sa machine, di na mo na alam kung na-count na siya doon sa canvassing. Tapos, syempre, may mga problema rin tayo kapag nasira yung mga machine, Mr. Chair. So si teacher na lang o yung teacher na lang yung nagpapasok. So hindi natin nakikita yun. So para maiwasan. So yun sana yung pinopropose namin, yung tama bill. So yun lang po, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Majority Leader Franz Castro, for your interpolation. We'll now proceed to the next interpolator. May we call on Deputy Majority Leader Tony Pet Albano for his interpolation. Please
Thank you,
proceed.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, Congressman Mendoza, for yielding. I just have a few queries. It's actually parochial in nature, but this has been a sorting for this representation. In the first district of Isabela, and I'm sure it happens all over the Philippines, I have a perennial nuisance candidate named Mr. Sullivan, whom I've never seen. And not one single poster has been put there. And he was fined several times for not even fulfilling his responsibility to give the election expense after the campaign. And yet, every year, his name is in the ballot, even if you've already declared him as a nuisance candidate. This is a big problem because, for one, your list is already too long. And it seems that the Comelec is dragging itself when it comes to declaring this particular person or particular persons in the whole Philippines as nuisance candidates already. It should be stricken out of the ballot so that it does not confuse the voters. May I ask, Mr. Chair, the whole Comelec and Bank, what they intend to do about this?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Well, in the first place, Section 69 of the Omnibus Election Code was already declared constitutional by the Supreme Court in the case of Pamatong versus Comelec, and likewise reiterated in the case of Martinez versus the Commission election. But unfortunately, of course, despite the presence of Section 69, which is nuisance candidacies, there are still many nuisance candidates that have been filing their candidacies. What is our solution? Last week, Your Honors, this representation that your chairman had called for a meeting of all bodies within the commission election involved in adjudication. And we said that if the filing of the candidacies will be by October, for example, of 2024, then we will have to resolve all nuisance cases, not only in the division level, but up to the end bank level up to December of the same year. Ang problema po, ang dahilan po ay dahil napapansin natin na kami rin naman po ang namumblema kapag kami mga nuisance na nakatakbo. And then after makatakbo ng nuisance, problema po after may proclaim at nagkakaroon ng issue tungkol sa kung kanino mabibigay yung boto po ng nuisance. So we will commit, Your Honor, that we will expedite, we will resolve these cases of nuisance within the same year that the petitions were filed. So at the same time, Your Honors, maybe Congress can now consider, there was a proposed bill before in the Senate to criminalize the filing of nuisance candidacies. So may proposal po dati si
The
Honorable.
problem is that this was decriminalized, Mr. Chair, before. Especially with expense to the expenditure. Am I correct?
Expenditure, Your Honors.
Before, it was criminal in nature for you not to file your expenses for election returns or for expenses during the elections. This was decriminalized, if I understand by the law as passed. Tama ba po yun?
Non-filing, yes, Your Honor. Non-filing of the SOSE.
Yes, the sausage.
Non-filing of the SOSE for 2 consecutive elections, you will be perpetually disqualified, Your Honor.
But it seems that this Mr. Sullivan has had managed to do it again in my district. And I don't understand that there are a lot of congressmen complaining of the same. So you are right, Mr. Chair, that you need to resolve this as soon as possible so this doesn't become a problem. And Mr. Chair, I am not accusing any Comelec officials here, but despite this, I hear a lot of rumors. I hear a lot of complaints from my fellow congressmen that the delay of such promulgation actually is, kung baka sinasabi natin, a reason for others to ask for dispensation of certain personal, alam mo na, kung ano yung sinasabi. So I would suggest that you really implement this particular measure to take away once and for all these problems of having the nuisance candidates, especially kung recurring yung tao na katulad dito si Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. October, if the filing is October, we will resolve all nuisance petitions for declaration of nuisance before the end of December of the same year when the filing was done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I would like to just manifest that if this happens again in the next election when I run, that Mr. Sullivan's budget name appears there, I will hold your budget for the next coming election. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Majority Leader Tony Pet Albano, for your interpolation. We'll now proceed to the next interpolator from Congressman Edsel Lagman. Please proceed, Congressman Lagman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May we know from the Comelec Chairman Garcia, for the record, whether the Comelec is fully prepared to conduct the December 2022 barangay and SK elections.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Your Honors, for the record, the Comelec is fully prepared to conduct the election on December 5.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may we also know from the Comelec whether the 8.4 billion appropriation is fully sufficient for the conduct of the barangay and SK elections in December 2022.
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, the 8.441 billion pesos is enough to finance the 2022 barangay and SK elections.
However, if we postpone the barangay elections to May 2023, there will be an additional amount of about 9 billion. And if we postpone it to December 2023, there will be an additional amount of more or less 10 billion in addition to the continuing appropriation of 7.4 billion. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, that is correct. But for purposes of clarification, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, it's 17 billion for May, less 7.5 billion. For December, 18 billion less 7.5 billion pesos.
That's correct. Now, Mr. Chairman, may we also know whether the amount already comprehensive released to the Comelec for the 2022 December elections could still be taken back by the executive in order to support the economic recovery program.
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, with all due respect, they cannot.
They cannot. Because the Comelec has fiscal autonomy under the Constitution. What is released to you cannot be taken back. It can be part of a continuing appropriation. Is that correct?
That is perfectly correct, Your Honor.
So in other words, the reason that there should be postponement in order that the amount can be used for the recovery program is not correct.
Based on the premises as mentioned, that is correct, Your Honor.
Under the Constitution, I think it's Section 8 of Article 10, the term of office of barangay officials, shall be determined by law. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And this mandate is a one-time mandate. Is that correct?
Your Honor, that may be the subject of a legal interpretation.
It is my position that it's a one-time mandate. Once exercised, it is already exercised by Congress, and there is no provision for a continuing mandate under Section 8 of Article 10. Now, there is no budget for the barangay and SK elections in 2023.
That is right, Your Honor, as proposed and as contained in the President's budget.
And you were present this morning, Mr. Chairman, when the Committee on Appropriation approved the consolidated bill under Section 4 on appropriation. There is no fixed amount appropriated for the barangay and SK election if they are postponed. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, and as correctly pointed out by the Honorable Congressman Lagman.
Now, if there is no appropriation in the 2023 budget of the Comelec for the conduct of barangay and SK elections, and there is no specific amount appropriated in the postponement of the barangay elections, then the barangay elections could be impaired because of an absence of an appropriate appropriation, because the 7.4 billion continuing appropriation would not be sufficient to conduct the elections.
7.4 billion, the 8.441 billion is only for December of 2022.
Okay. So this barangay elections is postponed to 2023, either in May or December, would be impaired if there is no appropriate or adequate appropriation. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, no budget would mean no budget for the Comelec to spend for the conduct of that electoral exercise.
Now, let me go to another topic. Since we embark on the automated elections, has there been any electoral protest which has prospered based on fraudulent generation of election results?
Since 2010, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, there was not a single election protest, at least filed before the commissioner election or even filed before other electoral tribunals such as the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal or even the Senate Electoral Tribunal or even in the Presidential Electoral Tribunal that prospered in favor of the protestant, even as far as this representation is concerned as a practitioner before.
What is the import of the absence of such electoral protest prospering?
At this point, Your Honor, it would mean that the machines are really functioning properly, that the machines are really counting properly. All throughout the different elections, Your Honor, the average of accuracy is almost 99.3% average accuracy. In the last election, it's 99.7% accurate, Your Honor. The 0.03% is only because the voter did not shade properly the ballots. Maybe po yung balota tuldok lang, kaya po hindi nabilang ng machine. But then sa naked eye, kitang-kita po yon. So meaning to say, with all due respect to all those who are saying that the machines are not functioning properly, that indeed the machines are accurate.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Chairman. And last question. I heard that you are in favor of a hybrid election, wherein there would be more dynamic participation of the people, the electorate, in watching the counting of the ballots. So it could be manual counting, but the transmission of the results could be electronic. Is that correct?
Yes, as envisioned by the Senate when it passed the bill for the hybrid system of election.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I am also in favor of a hybrid election.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kong Edsel, for your interpolation. Let's proceed for the next interpolator. May we call on Congressman Jolo Revilla for his interpolation. Please proceed, Congressman.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, esteemed members of this committee, Comelec Chairperson George Garcia, and the rest of the Comelec. My first question is, what is the status of the modernization program of the Comelec? And not just in terms of our technological upgrades to safeguard data stored by the Comelec, but also with regards having a new building to house such agency and the data. Ano po yung status po nito? And what is the latest update sa proposed 9-story building within the 2-hectare site in Pasay City?
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, sa napakagandang katanungan. When we initially proposed the budget for the agency, we asked the DBM for 10 billion pesos. However, the DBM reduced the budget as proposed from 10 billion to 4.6 billion. And fortunately for the agency, for the commission, when the new administration came, they added additional 500 million dito po sa aming proposed, sa aming budget. And that's why the President's budget will contain 5.221 billion for the commission. Tama po kayo, Mr. Chair, na binigyan po kami ng 500 million dahil gusto po namin magpatayo ng sarili naming bahay, sarili naming building. For the information of the members, the good members of the body, the Committee on Appropriation, we are actually leasing sa Palacio del Gobernador and such other office spaces around the Palacio del Gobernador. We are spending for 1 year 159 million pesos for lease alone. At pag po may mga special events kami, katulad po ng filing ng candidacy, katulad po ng canvassing sa national, sa senators and party list, kami po ay laging nangungupahan sa PICC at yung mga malalapit na hotels. Kahit po pag yung aming random manual audit, kami po ay nangungupahan din sa mga hotels. Yung mga major activities namin, lagi po kaming nangungupahan. At dahil po dyan, siguro naman po that yung urgent need for us to have a building ay naandun po. Ang Commission on Audit, Mr. Chair, ang Civil Service Commission, ang Office of the Ombudsman, Ang Commission on Human Rights, may sarili-sarili po silang building. Ang Commission on Elections, nabanggit po ni Congressman Edsel Lagman, isang constitutional body. Kami po yung nangungupahan hanggang sa kasalukuyan. Hindi po ba naman siguro marapat lang na magkaroon din kami ng sariling building? It will take po several years. Hindi po naman kami nangihingi ng 1 taon lang. It may be 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, or 10 years. The most important thing is we're able to start. Meron po kaming property, more than 2 hectares, less than 3. Diyan po sa may Makapagal. Amin po yon in our name. So why can't we not construct our own building? In terms of investment, iba po ang mag-invest ka sa sarili mong bahay. And that we are going to do and that we are going to pursue, of course, with the able help of our Congress.
Mr. Chair, we are one with you. At nakikiisa po kami sa inyo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Alam din naman po kasi natin, no? Parang recently nagkaroon din po ng sunog sa Palasyo del Gobernador. So, naniniwala po kami na talagang kinakailangan ito. And at the same time, my second question is, given the practicality of renting machines during the conduct of elections, how much money will we actually save by doing this instead of buying new machines? Kagaya po ng nasagot ko sa tanong ni Deputy Majority Leader Pat.
Malaki po, Your Honor, in terms of savings simply because pag po tayo ay bumili ng makina, technology po kasi yan, Your Honors, Mr. Chair. At dahil technology, parang cellphone, ilang panahon lang from iPhone 11, nag-12, nag-13, ngayon may 40 na. In 6 months period lang po nagbabago ang technology. Pag bumili po tayo ng makina, we are going to warehouse it. Magbumangungupahan na naman po kami ng warehouse. We are going to maintain it. Magbabayad po tayo sa maintenance. Samantalang kung lease po yan, kung lease without preempting the action of the NBank because that will be discussed po ng Commission NBank. Pag lease po yan, siyempre po siguradong bago ang kanila ipapalit sa amin, hindi naman po kami kapapayag na luma yung paparenta sa atin. Number 2, sila po magbabayad ng warehouse, sila rin po magbabayad ng maintenance and therefore napakalaking katipiran po on the part of the Commission on Election.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The First District of Cavite manifests its support to the Commission on Elections led by Chairperson George Erwin Garcia, a seasoned lawyer known for his legal expertise, especially in the field of election law. We hope to work with Comelec and assist them in their constitutional mandate to enforce and administer all laws and regulations relative to the conduct of elections, as the right to vote holds an equal responsibility that everyone entitled to vote should exercise such right. For the exercise of the right to vote is truly one of the acts that truly shows the democracy of our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Congressman Jolo. We'll proceed, no? We'll proceed now with the next interpolator from the majority again. Representative Jaime Presnedi. Nasa Zoom ba si Congressman Presnedi? Mute po kayo. Congressman, nakamute po kayo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to congratulate Chairman Garcia for his appointment as Chairman of the Commission on Election. We all know that Chairman Garcia is one of the leading election lawyer in the country, and his wealth of experience will definitely contribute in the reforms that he intends to do in Comelec. Anyway, congratulations, Chairman Garcia. My concern, Mr. Chairman, is about the resolutions of the Supreme Court last March, dated March 29, 2022. This is the resolution regarding persons deprived of liberty. Mr. Chairman, in 2013, that was the time it was implemented, wherein a PDL or person deprived of liberty were allowed to vote even to the local officials. However, there was a restraining order issued by the Supreme Court filed by Attorney Aguinaldo. So in 2016, 2019, and 2022, the same this PDL or person deprived of liberty were temporarily disallowed to vote for local candidates. However, this March 29, 2022, the Supreme Court lifted this restraining order and allowed this person deprived of liberty to vote even to the barangay officials, local officials. My concern, Mr. Chairman, is especially in Muntinlupa. In Muntinlupa, we have per election registrar around 5,000 PDL will be allowed to vote come election. I think especially for barangay officials, this will affect the result of the election. I don't think we can expect an honest election with those persons deprived of liberty allowing to vote, considering that they are under the protections of those persons in authority. Maybe know the thoughts of Chairman Garcia about these resolutions of the Supreme Court.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Indeed, we hailed the action of the Supreme Court in lifting the temporary restraining order na na-issue po nila in 2013 na kung saan hindi po pinaboto sa local election ang mga PDLs, persons deprived of liberties. But just the same, Your Honors, these persons deprived of liberties are still entitled under our Constitution, under Article 5, on the right of suffrage, to still cast their votes. In fact, in 2000, tama po yung na-point out po, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, in 2016 up to 2022, hindi po sila pinaboto for local positions. And since the Supreme Court already lifted the TRO, then it's a go signal, Your Honors, on the part of the Commission on Election, regardless of any political consideration or political issues, to allow these people to vote, because that is our constitutional duty. We have to allow them to vote, and we have an existing resolution that will allow these persons deprived of liberties to vote. Huwag po kayong mag-alala, Your Honors. The Comelec will do everything that all of these, your concerns will be seriously taken care of by the Commission, and likewise, we will protect the PDLs and assure their security so that they will not be influenced by politicians, especially local politicians. Kung sa Muntinlupa po, Your Honors, we have 5,000 in the entire country. We have 65,000 persons deprived of liberties. So again, we will comply with our constitutional mandate to allow everyone to vote. We will not disenfranchise anybody, because that is what the Supreme Court mandated us to do when it lifted the TRO. Your concerns, Mr. Chair, are seriously noted by the Commission. We will do everything. We will put in place all procedure to ensure that your fears and concerns will not materialize. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, earlier this morning in the Appropriation Committee on regarding the suspension or the deferment of elections of barangay and SK, you mentioned earlier about the people to vote wisely. Do you think, Mr. Chairman, that these people deprived of liberty can vote honestly, considering that they do not know the local candidates?
We will definitely conduct, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, a massive information campaign to all the facilities where the persons deprived of liberties are presently held. Nasa amin po yun, obligasyon po ng Commission on Election na ipaabot sa ating pong mga kababayan na nakakulong sa kasalukuyan sino ang mga kandidato at na yung mga kandidatong ito ay mga qualified base sa ating pagsusuri base po sa local government code at iba pang umiiral na patakaran. Doon po sa katanungan niyo po, Your Honors, with all due respect, the Commission will refrain from making other explanation or comment because that will now intrude into a purely political matter, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair, I would like to trust the words of Chairman Garcia on his commitment to conduct exhaustive information about the candidates, especially in the local elections, local candidates and barangay candidates for the person deprived of liberty to have to vote wisely to these candidates. Thank you, and that's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kong Presnedi. We'll proceed. The next interpolator will be Vice Chair Raul Bungalon. Sorry, I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
Thank you,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chair. Magandang umaga po sa Comelec and congratulations po kay Chairman at na-confirm na po ng Commission on Appointments. Fellow colleagues, good morning. Mr. Chairman, I just would like to be enlightened as regards the Comelec resolution that was issued during the campaign period. And this seems to be a confusion regarding the size limitation and the pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the case of Diocese of Bacolod versus Comelec. Napansin po kasi namin, Mr. Chairman, na nagkakaroon po ng confusion as to the pag-observe ng tamang size limitation po when it comes to the election paraphernalias. Can we just be enlightened, Mr. Chairman, regarding this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In the case of Diocese of Bacolod versus the Commission on Election, the Supreme Court was so emphatic that the sizes of that the right of a voter or individuals to put materials is a right guaranteed by the Constitution under the freedom of expression. And this is more particularly true, Your Honors, when it comes to private properties. That's why the Comelec was of strong belief and of the position in the 2022 elections that when it comes to private properties, we will definitely respect all election paraphernalia placed in private properties, and there will be no size limitation as far as private properties are concerned. The Supreme Court even said, the bigger, the better, because that is what democracy is all about. That is guaranteed by the freedom of expression. The size limitation is applicable only, Your Honors, as far as in private properties, public places are concerned. It's definitely the 8.5 by 13 and such other size limitations will be applicable in public places, but not in private properties.
Thank you for that explanation from the chairman of the Comelec. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I would like to manifest as your vice chairperson in the House Committee on Appropriations and as one of the representatives of a Bicol party list, together with our chairman, the Honorable Zaldico, I pronounce my commitment as a co-sponsor for the budget of the Comelec for the fiscal year 2023. And at this point, Mr. Chairman, may I be allowed to read the interpellation of the Honorable Jose Bong Teves Jr. as to the budget briefing of the Commission on Elections.
Please proceed, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairperson, Comelec Chairperson George Garcia, and the entire Comelec family, good morning to all of you. This representation would like to express my 100% support to the proposed budget of the Commission on Elections, and if it pleases the majority of this august body to increase its budget in order to effect the reforms in the Commission. With this, I concur with the proposal of the Commission on Elections for the construction of the new Comelec building. The current Comelec main office is located in the Palacio del Gobernador, was gutted by fire last week, and several offices of the commission were damaged. Also, the Comelec only leases from the Intramuros administration for the use of its office spaces in the Palacio del Gobernador building in Intramuros, Manila. It is high time for the Commission on Elections, a constitutional body, to acquire its own building and office space. My next suggestion is for the modernization and advancement of the outdated ballot boxes and or vote counting machines in order to strengthen its security features and further uphold the transparency and integrity of our election process. With the recently confirmed Chairperson Garcia at the helm of the Commission on Elections, this representation is certain that the constitutional body will remain an independent institution and free from any influence, and will continue to introduce developments for the benefit of the electorate in the name of democracy. Thank you, and mabuhay po kayo. Signed, Honorable Jose Bong Teves Jr., Deputy Majority Leader, Representative, TGP Party List. That's all, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Bongalon. For the next interpolator, may we call on Congressman Jervil Luistro. In the Zoom. Congressman Luistro.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, and good morning to all our honorable commissioners of the Comelec, most especially to our newly confirmed chairman of the Commission on Elections, the Honorable Garcia. For my interpellations, Mr. Chair, there are allegations that in spite of the Comelec resolution directing the cleansing of permanent records of voters to remove and exclude the names of deceased and those with double and multiple registrations, their names still appeared in the permanent list and were able to cast their votes in the last May 2022 elections. May we know the thoughts of our honorable chairman on how to address these concerns.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. As far as the cleansing of the list of voters, it's a continuing process on the part of the Commission on Election. But I would like to explain so that it will be very, very clear to all of us. Bakit po ba yung mga patay hanggang sa kasalukuyan yung mga pangalan nila ay naandyan? We can easily remove yung mga patay, yung mga deceased individuals po, doon sa mga nakatira po sa bawat bayan. Pag po si A namatay sa bayan na yan, therefore, the civil registrar of that municipality is mandated under Republic Act 8189 to submit per quarter the list of the deceased individuals who died in that particular place. Unfortunately, Your Honors, our problem really is, what if a resident of this municipality will die in another place? The problem is the civil registrar of that place will definitely not issue a certification addressed to the local Comelec that A died in the municipality, in his municipality, in another municipality. So ang problem po namin, Your Honors, is yung law, yung Republic Act 8189 provides only for the submission by the local civil registrar of those who died in that area of jurisdiction. So ang ginawa po ng Comelec ay nakiusap po kami sa Civil Registrar General na kung pwede ay isubmit na lang sa amin sa Comelec yung lahat ng namatay sa buong Pilipinas on a per quarterly basis so that kami na lang po ang magdi-distribute sa iba't ibang local Comelec namin. Kami na lang po magsasabi, pakitanggal nyo to dahil namatay siya outside of the place where he is a resident of. Unfortunately po, we were informed by the Civil Registrar General that we have to pay an amount of 5 pesos per every namatay. So medyo pag madami-dami pong namatay, malaki-laki po rin yung babayaran ng Comelec para sa certification na namatay po ito. Kasi po may binabayaran din po sila. And that is the reason why, Your Honors, that will require legislation. With all due respect po. Kakailanganin po ng legislation upang libre po naming makuha yung listahang iyon sa Civil Registrar General. So kahit po nakikiusap kami, hindi po talaga nila pwedeng ibigay ng libre sa amin. And so sabi namin, we will just push for legislation so that we can easily access and get the list of all the dead individuals nationwide so that we will be the one to remove these names through our local election officers. For your information also, Your Honors, the Comelec has this so-called AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. This is a program which the Comelec developed. Yung program pong ito, we can easily, for your information po, we can easily find out whether a voter is a double registrant or a multiple registrant. Maaari pong hindi po nalalaman ng lahat. We are always requiring on a quarterly basis our election officers to remove the names of these individuals subject to the approval of the Election Registration Board as mandated by Republic Act 8189 because these registrants are multiple registrants. Of course, you cannot remove all the names. Hindi naman po pwedeng tanggalin. Ang tatanggalin lang po talaga ay yung mismong yung subsequent registration aside from the original registration without prejudice to these individuals facing election offense cases. So, may continuing process po kami ng cleansing. Yung pong deactivation under the law, under Republic Act 8189 also. And if you fail to vote in 2 consecutive elections, your names will be removed from the list. If you wanted to be reinstated, then you will have to file later on a petition for reactivation filed before the Election Registration Board. So, with all due respect po, Your Honors, patuloy po yung paglilinis namin. Wag po kayong mag-alala. The most important document, of course, other than the ballot in an election, will always be the list of voters. And that is also the reason why, under the same Republic Act 8189, there is a period by which political parties, candidates, stakeholders, everybody else can inquire into the book of voters. Ino-open po namin yon before namin saraduhan yung libro. And so, iniinganyo po namin ang lahat na sana i-take yung opportunity na yon for them to be able to be there and observe and pinpoint to the Election Registration Board the names of individuals that they wanted to be removed. And finally po, ang isang botante, once na nakaboto na po, ay hindi namin basta-basta pwedeng tanggalin because the right to vote comes in. It's a constitutional right. It is now judicial in character. It's no longer administrative. The proper solution really is to file a petition for exclusion before the municipal trial court. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
With respect, Mr. Chair, to the manifestation of the Honorable Chairman, may I manifest my interest to work with the team of the Comelec or perhaps with the Committee on Suffrage to be able to come up with the proper bill or legislative measure which will finally address the cleansing of our permanent list of voters from names of deceased, double and multiple registrants, Mr. Chair. And earlier, Mr. Chair, our Honorable Chairman likewise mentioned about the finger scanner, the biometrics. May we be enlightened if it is the intention of the Comelec to reimpose the same for the purpose of the next barangay election? Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. For the barangay election, we will what we're going to do is still the one that we had been doing for the last several elections. We will have our own. Yung nakaraang 2022 po, meron tayong voters verification table. Napaka-successful po nun. Alam po nyo, lahat ng mga botante po natin, yung mga constituents nyo po, pumunta lahat sa table na yon at nagtatanong saan ba ako registered. Aside from that, we have the precinct finder. And aside from that, we have the list of voters outside of the precinct posted on the walls. And aside from that, we have the election day computerized voters, is the EDCBL, where you can see your pictures, you can see the sample of your signature, and then where you sign, and where the teachers will write the serial number of the ballots. So yung palang din po. Yung pong pagkakaroon ng fingerprint, yung para ma-verify, nagkaroon po tayo ng pilot test before. And in the future, Your Honor, we will again continue to study the possibility of putting in place machines whereby pagpasok niyo po, parang pumapasok sa bawat opisina, nagpapa-biometrics lang. But that is based on the condition that the list of voters is so clean. We will undertake first, on the part of the commission, the cleansing of the list of voters. We will have to do that first because po kahit mag-biometrics po tayo, pagkatapos naman po ay hindi rin malinis ang listahan ng botante o may mga botanteng nakakaligtas, then the machines will not be able to correct what can be corrected by the human beings. So we will first make the proper cleansing, humanly possible, and then after that, we will proceed to what the Honorable Congresswoman is suggesting. We will proceed with the biometrics technology for purposes of voting.
Thank you for the positive response to that concern, Mr. Chair. And of course, I am encouraging the support of our fellow members of the 19th Congress so that the desired thorough cleansing of the permanent list of voters may be achieved by the Commission on Elections. And for my last concern, I acknowledge the statement earlier of our Honorable Chairman about the accuracy of the VCM or vote counting machine in as far as the counting of the votes cast are concerned. May we know the thoughts of the Comelec with respect this time to vote buying or no vote buying, as this likewise disenfranchise our voters, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Section 261A of the Omnibus Election Code defined what is vote buying. But unfortunately, our Omnibus Election Code was circa 1985. We have not yet amended or have not yet revised the Omnibus Election Code. There is a pending bill in the House of Representatives in your Congress, in our Congress, Your Honor, that imposes additional or increased penalty for those who are engaged in vote buying. We actually support such kind of initiative, but however, we are of the belief that aside from increasing the penalty for those who will be found guilty of vote buying, maybe it's high time that we likewise redefine what is the meaning of vote buying. Ibig sabihin po, yung vote buying noong 1985 ay maaaring hindi nakasophisticated sa vote buying ng kasalukuyang panahon. And ibig sabihin po, yung vote buying sa kasalukuyang panahon ay maaaring hindi na makover ng definition ng 261A ng Omnibus Election Code. And therefore po, it may be used by certain candidates and unscrupulous individuals in getting away with that felony, with that offense. Kasi nga po, may loophole na ang batas. Such as, for example, vote buying using your cell phone. Or such as, for example, using GCash or PayMaya or such other modes of transferring funds. So in that case, ang tanong po ba, yung po ba ay pwede makover doon po sa mismong definition natin sa 261A. Next, yung pong mga paggastos ng ilan nating mga local officials. Manghihingi po na, wala po exceptions sa social services. Doon pa lang din po meron po yung loophole. Kasi how do you now distinguish purely social services and purely vote buying? Namimigay po ng mga tulong, lalo pandemic response, and that is still a function of the local government under 7160 local government code. But technically, are we now considering that as likewise vote buying? So medyo may problem po tayo dun sa bagay na yon. Sample lang ko pa rin po kayo ng kailangan na natin ng legislation. Bowler, t-shirt, cups, wala po yan sa law. So kung namigay po ba si A ng kandidato ng mga candy, cups, konting pagkain, pang-inom lang ng tubig, mineral water, is that already vote buying? We should properly now define what is the meaning of vote buying. Bakit wala na po prosecute? Simply because, it's not because maybe to a certain extent may fault din ng konti ang Comelec, but to a certain extent because of the lack of evidence. Because nobody would like to pursue vote buying as an election offense. Kasi po, pagpapile sa amin, iimbestigahan namin, probable cause, papal namin sa korte, magwi-withdraw yung complainant, walang ebidensya, walang mag-testify, it will surely be dismissed by the courts. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Indeed, Mr. Chair, this representation is overwhelmed by the expertise and wisdom of our honorable chairman of the Comelec. And it will definitely be an honor to become part of the vision or perhaps the objective of our honorable chairman towards redefining these offenses under the Omnibus Election Code. And finally, Mr. Chair, let me express my undivided support to the budget of Comelec, including to all its commissioners and of course our chairman. Please count me in, Honorable Chairman, among the representatives who will support the budget and even all its possible increases. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat, Congresswoman Jervel Castro, for your interpolation. Before we proceed, the chair would like to add on the comment raised by Congresswoman Castro regarding yung mga patay, no, sa registration of voters na nandun pa sa list of voters. I just encountered this one, no, from a personal experience. Some civil registrars in different municipalities is raising the violation of Data Privacy Act. Ayaw nila ibigay yung listahan ng mga patay because they would violate Data Privacy Act. So how do we what's your take on this, Mr. Chair, Chairman Garcia?
The Honorable, Mr. Chair, the Honorable Congressman Ed Salagman was the author of Republic Act 8189. It was really the intention of that law to compel all civil registrars nationwide to submit to Comelec. Pangalan lang naman po yung isasabit sa amin ng mga namatay at kung kailan namatay. I don't think that there is a violation of data privacy in that respect. So, with all due respect to our civil registrars, unfortunately, their argument cannot stand in court.
Thank you very much, Chair. But we need maybe a memorandum to enforce that, to remind them that there's no violation with Data Privacy Act. Because yun po ang sinasabi nila. We had difficulty, asking for the list of the, that people who are dead in their municipalities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This representation will be the guest speaker of all the civil registrars in their General Assembly this coming Saturday, and I will definitely emphasize that, and we will issue the corresponding notice and reminder for them to issue to us. And in the first place, Your Honor, the civil registrars are members of the Election Registration Board, the ERB, and surely they are the ones approving or disapproving the application or removing the names. So they cannot really miss submitting to local Comelec the list of those who died on a quarterly basis.
Thank you very much for that clarification,
Thank you po.
Chairman Garcia. So let's proceed po. The next interpolator will be Vice Chair Joseph Jojo Lara. Congressman Lara, are you in the Zoom? Lara, please unmute. Cannot hear you. Hindi po namin kayo marinig. Sa microphone po niyo, Kong Lara.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay. Proceed. Please proceed.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Naimbagabigat kanya tayo amin na po. Good morning po sa ating lahat. Please allow me to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Comelec, now headed by our chairman, the Honorable Erwin George Garcia, for all your hard work in securing the success of the recently concluded national and local elections. At this point po, allow me to congratulate Chairman George Garcia for the confirmation of his appointment. Mr. Chair, I would just like to manifest my request to Comelec, of course through our honorable commissioners and Chairman Garcia, for your support to legislative measures that will strengthen policies and laws against unlawful disbursement, releases, and expenditures of public funds and use of government funds for distribution of cash and other forms of assistance to registered voters during election period. Tulad po na nangyari sa aming probinsya sa Cagayan, at ako po natutuwa nung nakikinig kanina kay Chairman George, no, na kailangan nang magkaroon ng amendment, no, sa batas na nauukol po dito, no, nang dahil ang nangyari po sa amin, talamak po ang vote buying gamit po ang pera ng gobyerno. Ito po nung nakaraang election, lahat ng social services and programs ng provincial government, supposedly ng 2 taon, without the required exemption from the Comelec, were disbursed and released during the election period. Ang worst po nito, several days before election day. The provincial governor, Manuel Mamba, reportedly withdrew from the coffers of the provincial government of Cagayan gargantuan amounts of public funds commingled from various funds, savings, donations, trust funds, and others without the needed appropriations from the Sangguniang Panlalawigan, without the needed exemptions from Comelec, and despite a TRO, temporary restraining order issued by a competent court, proceeded to illegally distribute 1,000 pesos to every registered voter all over the province. Although, Mr. Chair, I have filed House Resolution number 146 on this, and we will discuss this at an appropriate time in the committee. I would just like to request the support and needed collaboration of the Comelec on this so we can pass legislation that will strengthen implementations of these laws and policies, especially on provisions of the Omnibus Election Code and permanent Comelec resolutions expressly prohibiting the disbursements, release, and expenditures of public funds without the required exemption of the Comelec, with the end view of pursuing legal remedies against offending public officials to prevent repetitions of these highly unlawful practices in the future. With that said, Mr. Chair, I would like to express my full support to the approval of the 2023 budget of the Commission. Rest assured, Chairman Garcia and the rest of the Comelec family, of my support to all programs of the Commission. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Agyaman na po. Diyos ti Agnina, mabalo po sa atin lahat.
Jojo, for your interpolation. Let's proceed. I'm sorry. Chairman Garcia.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman Lara. Chairman Garcia, do you have any response?
I could definitely, Your Honor, we will strengthen our ability to monitor expenditure of public fund, especially on social services. Yun nga po yung madaming problema. And yours truly being the commissioner in charge for the request for exemption for social services expenditure, madami po kami dininay nung nakaraan. Alam po ng mga ibang kagalang-galang na miyembro po ng ating komite. Ang dami po namin dininay ng mga request noon for exemption. Kaya lang po, madami rin pong hindi humingi sa amin ng exemption. And that's why, for the record, lahat po ng hindi humingi sa amin ng exemption, therefore, nag-violate po ng Omnibus Election Code because they have to secure the necessary exemption, parang gun ban sa amin. Otherwise, they will be facing election offense cases punishable by 3 to 6 years imprisonment.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Chairman Garcia, maraming salamat po sa assurance ninyo. Kasi po, ako po'y naniniwala na ang kagustuhan talaga ng karamihan sa atin ng mamamayan tuwing election po ang mananaig. Katulad lang po ng nabanggit nyo kanina, no, na maraming paglabag tungkol doon sa provision po, no, na kailangan humingi ng exemption from the Comelec. Ang worst po ay kung hindi nga po ito humingi at itinuloy po ang paglabag doon sa provision na yan. So once again po, Mr. Chair, no, ito naman po ay naisalang po bilang House Resolution number 146. Alam ko tatalakayin din namin ito ni na Chairman Garcia and the rest of the commissioners, no, kung mamarapatin po, no, i-reiterate ko lang na sana ito pong mga ganitong mga pangyayari, sabi nga natin kanina, yung mga walang maliit na bagay po sa panahon ng eleksyon. Lahat po ng paglabag ay malaki, no, na dahil ako po'y naniniwala na maaaring ito ay magiging impluwensya na mabago ang kagustuhan ng ating mamamayan. No, ang worst po ng nangyari nga po, ito sa kaalaman po ng aking mga colleagues, yung pangyayari po sa aming probinsya, sa Cagayan, ang worst po na nangyari, ginamit po ang pondo ng gobyerno para ikalak, no, ng aming gobernador doon ang tigi 1,000 sa bawat botante sa kagustuhan daw na tanggapin nyo ito para wag iboto ang kandidatong bumibili ng boto. So yan po, Mr. Chair, yung gusto ko lang po na alam ko, ulitin ko lang po, we will take this up on the proper committee. So once again, Mr. Chair, Bingo, no, maraming salamat po, rest assured, again sa Comelec family, Mr. Chair Garcia, of my 101% support, no, hindi lamang dito sa idinulog niyong 2023 budget, at kung meron pa kayong mga programang iba, katulad din po ng kagustuhan niyong magtayo ng sarili niyong bahay, hindi lang sa national, sana mabigyan din ng pondo ang pagtayo ng bahay ng Comelec sa aming probinsya. Kasi po, nakakaawa naman din na palipat-lipat sila at napakaliit po nung opisina ng Comelec. No, ay napaka-importante opisina na hindi po nabigyan ng kaukulang pondo o kaukulang pansin. So again po, maraming salamat sa inyo at Diyos tiagnina po. Mabalot.
Maraming salamat, Kong Jojo. We take note of your manifestation and your concerns. We'll proceed po. The next interpolator will be from Vice Chair Joboy Aquino. Yes, please proceed, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Sir Chairman. Good afternoon. Magandang tanghali, Chairman Garcia, sa lahat po ng mga commissioner at sa Comelec family. Simple lang po, Chairman. No? Number one, I am for the election for this coming October, the barangay election, and I support na magkaroon kayo ng sarili nyo ng building. Ito naman ho, siyempre para makita ang malaking pagbabago sa Comelec. Every 3 years, always na lang ang Comelec. Napakaraming problema. Batikos dito, batikos doon. Di ba? Kasi nga, sa eleksyon. Now, I do really believe under your leadership, Chairman, no, dapat kayong bigyan ng pagkakataon na ipakita ang malaking pagbabago sa Comelec. Kaya ako po gusto kong matuloy talaga itong barangay election. Dahil sa may sinasabi na kumbaga justice delayed, justice denied. Para nyo rin pong dinideny ang democracy at ang rights ng mga tao na pumili ng kanilang gustong mga barangay officials. Again, simple lang ho, hingin ko sa inyo, pakisabi lang po ulit, magkano ang madadagdag pagka pinospone natin ang barangay election. Wag na ho yung sa building nyo. Ako po nagsusupport, no, kung ano mang paraan, suportado ko po kayo para doon sa building nyo. May lupa na kayo, kailangan maglagay na ng sariling building. Sayang yung pera. So, simple lang ho. Chairman, again, please, ano yung reason na bakit kailangan natin ituloy ang barangay election? Thank you.
Well, as Mr. Chair, Your Honors, thank you very much for that question. As far as the Comelec is concerned, we are so prepared for the December 5, 2022 election. We would like to put that on record. We are prepared. How much are we going to spend if we are going to postpone and reset the election? If it is postponed by May, 17 billion. If it is postponed by December, 18 billion. We have now presently still on our possession, on our hands, 7.5 billion. So it will be 17 billion less 7.5 billion. So kailangan pa po namin, Your Honors, ng 9.5 more or less billion. Kung sakali naman pong December of 2023, Your Honor, kakailanganin po namin ng 18 less 7.5, mga more or less po 10 to 11 billion. Yun po yung kailangan namin kung mapopostpone ang barangay and SK election.
Thank you. Last time, may naalala na ako. Ready na ho ang pera para sa barangay election.
Naandyan na po sa amin, ginagastos na po namin sa kasalukuyan, 8.4221 po yon. Sa kasalukuyan po, 7.5 kasi po may nagastos na kami. Meron na kami na purchase at ngayon po nagsisimula na kami mag-award sa iba't ibang suppliers po namin. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to print 92 million ballots. So we will finish the printing in just a matter of 1 month. At tatapusin po namin yung printing ng balota na yan.
Thank you. Very, very clear, Chairman. Yung mga very valid reasons na dapat talaga tuloy ang election ngayon October. Thank you and again, congratulations, Chairman Erwin Garcia.
Maraming salamat, Vice Chair Joboy Aquino, for your interpolation. Our next interpolator will give her manifestation of support to the Comelec. May we call on Vice Chair Mary Mitzi Kahayon Uy for her manifestation. Please
Thank you so
proceed.
much, Mr. Chair, and to the Comelec family. Thank you for the responses. I could not ask any further because there's no question yata that haven't been answered by our very competent chair, Comelec chair. And with that, kasi earlier po kasi the Committee on APRO had already their deliberation on and most of the questions had been answered earlier. Kaya parang okay naman na po. I will no longer ask about this whether or not this barangay election will push through. So if I make allow me, Mr. Chair, to make this manifestation. This representation and the 2nd District of Caloocan City strongly support the approval of the Commission on Elections 2023 budget. Comelec, as the protector of the ballot and our right to suffrage, it is imperative that we give full support to the fundings and resources that the Comelec needs in order to properly implement their various projects, programs, and activities leading to the conduct of our elections. This representation is also confident that the Comelec is in capable hands under the leadership of the seasoned lawyer who has invaluable experience and knowledge, whose track record has demonstrated his dedication and integrity and unwavering adherence to the rule of law. Again, as I will join other colleagues who congratulates Attorney George Garcia for being appointed on his position right now as a Comelec chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Comelec family.
Maraming salamat, Vice Chair Mitch Kahayon Uy. at this point in time, no, it's already 12:20, and considering that the chairman of Comelec, Chairman Garcia, has been here in Congress since 6 a.m. Tama, Chair? So the chair would like to suspend, okay, with due consideration to suspend the hearing for a while, for 2 minutes. Bago po tayo mag-break, tatawagin po ng chair ang ating kagalang-galang na Congressman Edsel Lagman for his manifestation.
Mr. Chairman, the construction of a Comelec building has been a long dream of the Comelec. Because of the long delay of lack of appropriations, most probably that dream is becoming a nightmare. I understand from the presentation that the building would cost 9.3 billion. And that would be less than the additional expense we're going to incur if we postpone the December 2022 elections. So there is good reason to push through with the election and earmark and appropriate 9.3 billion for the construction of the Comelec building. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Kong Edsel Lagman, for your support, no, sa construction of Comelec's own building. And now we will take a break, no, suspend our budget hearing and take a break for 1 hour. As of now, it's 12:23, so we will resume at around 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yes.
Everybody, please settle down. We'll start in 2 minutes. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. The resumption of the budget hearing for fiscal year 2023. Expenditure levels and budget proposals is hereby called to order. For anything else, I would like to recognize the presence of our former President, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, now Senior Deputy Speaker. Continue with our interpolation. May we call on Representative Peter Miguel for his interpolation. Please proceed.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Po sa second district ng South Cotabato po, milaanan po ng city government ang Comelec provincial as well as city ng lupa, libre po. Ang katanungan ko lang po, pwede po bang mapunduhan ito para habang nagpapaganda kayo ng gusali nyo dito sa Central, dapat po pantay din, maganda rin dapat po ang opisina ng ating pamunuan doon sa probinsya dahil meron ng lupa at ang building na lang po ang kailangan po.
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, definitely we will prioritize that. Yung po mga iba naming regional offices nga po, dalawa po ngayon ay kasalukuyang ginagawa at nagawan po ng paraan ng Commission on Elections na magkaroon ng pondo para po dito. So we will definitely prioritize that for the next budgeting season, sir.
Salamat po. Mapunta tayo dun sa pagpaparehistro po ng ating mga botante. At siyempre dumagsa po dahil this looming barangay elections po. Pero marami rin cases po ng mayroong double entry, double registry. Lumalabas po in local parlance, flying voters. Ako'y nagtataka dahil akala ko noon meron tayong facial recognition na upon registering, makikita po kung ito po ay na-register na sa ibang lugar. Tama ho ba o hindi ito? Wala po tayong system that upon registering from the local office there, makikita na po kaagad or ito'y tinadaan pa sa central at saka babalik pa, saka lang malilinis yung listahan?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, wala po tayo yung facial recognition for purposes of registration identification. But what we have right now, yung biometrics po, yun ang dahilan po kung bakit pinapaliwanag namin sa publiko na kinakailangan bumalik sila sa local Comelec kahit nag-submit sila ng application kung hindi pa sila nakukuhanan ng fingerprint o kaya yung kanilang signature. Kailangan po namin yung fingerprints nila, Your Honors, simply because meron po kaming AFIS na tinatawag, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. So we have this program that can really verify whether a particular voter is a registered voter of another place, another municipality, city, or another barangay, either within the same province or outside of the province po. So bine-verify po namin yan at nakikita po kaagad. Ang ginagawa po ng local Comelec natin, ito po ini-endorse nila yung mga names ng mga botantes sa atin pong provincial election supervisors at yung mga provincial election supervisors naman ay nag-a-ask sa main office ng nagpa-verify. Hindi po namin ma-decentralize yung operation na yan, Your Honors. Hindi namin maibigay doon sa aming local Comelec because of the issue of data privacy. So, bine-verify po namin and then yung nakikita po namin na double or multiple registrants, pinapadala po namin yung listahan. Say for example po in Surala, South Cotabato, meron po halimbawa kami nakita na double or multiple registrants na mga 500. Yung 500 na names na po yun ay pinapadala namin sa local Comelec in Surala. But the local Comelec will not immediately cancel that name or the names of these voters. Still, the election registration board of the municipality of Surala will convene, and it's up to them whether they will cancel the name or they will still retain the name. So ganun po yung procedure natin, Your Honors.
O nga po, with that procedure, mahaba po at saka there is a human intervention in the middle, and that is the election registration board. Alam naman po natin nangyayari po. May politika, may pressure, may ganun-ganon. Okay na po kung nakaupo si Congressman yours truly, pero po kung disadvantage naman po yung iba. So yung akin sana po, at source from the very initial start of registration, sana po may database na po tayo lahat. Ibig sabihin niyo po, nangangalap pa rin po ba tayo hanggang ngayon ng thumbprint or thumb marks? Hindi po ba perfect yung buong rehistradong botante ng buong Pilipinas ay meron ng database of thumb marks sa opisina natin, sa data bank natin?
Meron po kami, Your Honors, meron po kami, kaya lang po, pag-appile po kasi ng application ng botante, late, hindi pa po kaagad doon, tama po kayo, hindi pa po kaagad doon yung verification. Because still, pag-file po niya ng application, mag-a-under ko pa po ng proseso yung kanyang application. But of course, kasama na rin po doon yung pag-verify kung siya ay formerly registered voter or not, or a transferee. Alam niyo po kasi, Your Honor, if I may lang po maiksing-maiksi, kalimitan po kung bakit nagkakaroon ng multiple or double registration, minsan naman po hindi intentional on the part of the voters. Ang problem lang po, despite advice from our local Comelec, hindi po kasi sila nagpa-file, Your Honors, nung tinatawag na application for transfer of registration. Pag po nag-file, porket lumipat ng bahay, ang pina-file po nila is registration as an original voter. So meaning to say po, without knowing that you need to transfer your registration, otherwise, mariretain po yung earlier registration doon sa pinanggalingan niyang lugar o presinto o yung bayan. So may procedure po. Again, Your Honor, we will seriously again revisit our procedure as you have intimated. We will try to look into the possibility of, in the earliest possible time, for the commission or the local Comelec to immediately determine whether a voter is a previously registered voter or really just a transferred voter. Tama po kayo. Yung election registration board po, Your Honor, wala pong magawa ang Commission on Election dyan because it's provided for by law. And alam naman po natin, ang miyembro po ng ERB ay ang election officer as a chairperson and the civil registrar and the supervisor of DepEd as members po.
Opo, yun nga po. Makiklearn at makikita yung double registry upon checking in your database only nearing election time. Is it? Parang malapit na, hindi na ito yung kaagad-agad.
With all due respect, Your Honors, pwede po namin kaagad makita even if it's not very close to the election. We can find that out during the quarter na nag-register po.
Kasi po we have 100 days before election, di ba, to file exclusion of voters if we deem it's not a proper voter. And 65 days kung lokal. So, yung nakikita ko, kung makikleanse natin later than this 165 days, we have no more time to file complaint. Hindi na kami, di ba, hindi na kami legal na magpa-exclude. Yun lang kinakatakutan namin na dapat as early as possible, meron na talagang cleansing ng database, especially yung thumb mark. Kasi yung thumb mark na lang pinaka-last nyo eh. Diba? Yung name, number 1, pag dumoble, question yon. Pag dumoble yung the other thing. But at the end, yung thumb mark yung pinaka-last arbiter nyo eh. So
Yes.
kung sa huli na yon, wala na kaming panahon para tanggal pa sa botante yung tingin namin hindi dapat botante.
Tama po kayo, Your Honors, Mr. Chair. Ang problem po kasi is because constitutionally protected po yung right to vote. If, for example, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, na-determine ng main office ng Comelec, yung Information Technology Department namin, ng aming Election and Barangay Affairs Department, that a voter is a multiple registrant, even if we require the election officer, Your Honor, to remove that name from the list, that election officer cannot immediately remove that name. Kasi po, mag-undergo po, Your Honor, ng process. So, yung election registration board will still have to convene and the election registration board is to decide kung tatanggalin o hindi. And of course, Your Honor, yung pong posibilidad, nasabi nyo nga po, Your Honor, the possibility of irregularity can be present. Tatlo po kasi sila and therefore, they always rule by majority. So even if the local Comelec would like to remove that name as instructed by our main office, but if the two members of the ERB, the supervisor and the civil registrar will outvote the election officer, then that name will still be retained in the list of voters. That is the reality, Your Honor, on the ground, and that is because that is what the law provides under Republic Act 8189.
So we are constrained by that republic. Anyway, hopefully we'll find solution sooner enough. Next, sir, is ano pong effect kung hindi matuloy ang barangay election come December 2022 and may lipat by next year? Ano na yung time reckoning natin for this 100 days of filing exclusion of voters? Kailan, opo.
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Kung hindi po matutuloy ang eleksyon natin by December 5, 2022, on the assumption that it will be reset by May of 2023, we will be having our continuing registration. Again, we will start with the continuing registration of voters by October of this year and will end by November of this year also. 2 buwan lang po ang aming pong schedule. So that to give time po yung sa sinasabi nyo, makapag-oppose, makita, malaman, and then makapag-file ng proper petition or makapag-oppose sa election registration board and petition in courts later. Kung sakali naman po, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, that ang election ay marireset not by May but by December 5, by December of 2023, we'll start again with the registration of our voters by again October of this year, but it will have to end by June of next year. So October to June po, medyo mahaba-haba yung period so that, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we'll still have July, August, September, October, more or less to clean the entire list of voters.
Maliwanag po. And last, doon po sa mga deso, sa bawat lugar-lugar po, alam niyo po, napag-alaman ko sa kalawak ng kinampanyang ko, meron na palang deso naka-in place na long before pa. Ang akin lang po, nagkakaroon na sila ng too much familiarity sa mga kandidato. Siyempre, nagkakaroon na rin ng biases. Ang sa akin lang po, magkaroon ba tayo ng way na randomly i-shuffle to na hindi na sila paulit-ulit doon sa lugar na yon, na entrance na sila and even locals knows these teachers who are may ginagawang milagro. Alam na ng lokal, nagulat ako. So sa akin lang po sana kung hawak ito ng Comelec, pati mga DESO, pati mga ERBs ang tawag dito, kung pwedeng hawakan na rin micromanage na sana mabalansa ito bago mag-election po.
Yes, Your Honor.
It really affects us.
Definitely, we will consider rotating them. At least po mawala yung familiarity nila doon sa specific na lugar na yan. We will consider that, Your Honor. Thank you very much for that suggestion.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chair,
Your
I
time
have
has
no more
expired.
further questions. Salamat po.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Congratulations, Attorney. Salamat.
Thank you very much, Kong Peter. Now we proceed with Kong Rosana Rhea Vergara. I think she is in the Zoom. Zoom. Vergara is not in the Zoom. So we will proceed with Congresswoman Maria Alona Samantha Santos for her interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to everyone, to our Comelec family, Chair George Garcia, and of course I am well aware that you're friends with Gov Lala, no, and of course Kong Raymond. I just have one question for Comelec today, and whoever wants to answer, they could answer. It's regarding the 63 barangays na nasali po sa BARM. There was an announcement, yung palapit na po ng eleksyon, na pwede po silang bumoto for president, vice president, senator, and of course, party list. However, sabi nyo, that time, it would be the last time. So going forward, what will happen to BARM as the next election in 3 years from now will actually take place? Will they still be able to participate for the 2025 election, or that has not been discussed?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Without being accused of violating the sub judice rule, there is a pending case before the Supreme Court, and I was the one who filed and questioned the action of the Comelec in that Supreme Court case. And whatever will happen in that case, whatever will be the decision of the Supreme Court in that case, will definitely impact on the action of Comelec. As far as we are concerned, in the meantime, Your Honors, we are still waiting for the action of the BARM as to whether they will consider the 63 barangays as municipalities within the BARM, and at the same time, kung i-consider po nila municipalities, saan po nila isasama na probinsya? So medyo may konti parang pong problem din. Hanggang ngayon po, hindi pa rin po sila kumikilos doon sa bagay na yan, and therefore, kami po sa Comelec, naghihintay po kami doon sa action na yon. Otherwise po, the same thing will happen again in 2025, Your Honor. Sana po, before that the 2025 election, we'll be able to have a resolution whether the exclusion of the 63 barangays from the mother province is really constitutional, valid, or is it legal? And at the same time, we have to determine yung system po. Try to imagine, Your Honor, napakahirap po ng kalagayan ng Comelec kasi we computerized the 2022 election, tapos manual ang 63 barangays. Medyo nahirapan po kami doon dahil siyempre po, 2 systems, 1 election. You cannot do that. It should always be 1 system, 1 election. So as of this time, we are still waiting for the action. But as far as the Comelec is concerned, in the meantime, Your Honor, we'll be very candid. Wala pa po kaming discussion tungkol doon sa 63 barangays, but we will come to that later. We are likewise respectfully asking the BARM to clarify the status of the 63 barangays.
Thank you, Chair Garcia, and of course, thank you to Comelec. We just wanted to point that out kasi marami rin pong mga komunidad na parte sa BARM na nag-question na rin po ano nga ba daw ang kanilang future when it comes to voting. Yun na po, maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to everyone.
Next interpolator who will give his manifestation. May we call on Deputy Speaker Democrito Mendoza.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Chairman of the Comelec family. Maayong hapon kayo tanan, and Commissioner, of course, Commissioner Chairman Garcia. Comelec, Amy Ferolino, may hapon din ma'am, taga-Bansalan man day. And of course, Commissioner Nelson Silis was also we're all the World War II. My manifestation, Mr. Chair, is quite simple. Thank you for that answer because I'm also from Region 12, the province of Cotabato. And personally, I witnessed that 2 systems, di ba? Sinasabi na, I hope hindi maulit. One is manual and the other one is automated. With that being said, kami naman sa TUCP fully supports your vision
and of course, finding a new home. And finally, can you imagine a constitutional body na kailangan talagang na may building? And I think we have a commitment, a firm at that, hopefully from the chairman himself and also the chair and his for this purpose, and of course for the leadership, a new home in somewhere in Pasay. So that's about it, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman Garcia.
Daghang salamat, Deputy Speaker. Next interpolator will be our Vice Chair, Benny Abante. Please proceed with your interpolation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Una-una po, congratulations, Chairman Garcia, for your being the chairman of the Comelec. I just would like to ask, because you know, the perennial problem we have during the election is no longer cheating in the Comelec, because I believe that the kind of election we have today is not anymore like many years back, during the manual election. But the real problem we have, Mr. Chairman, is the cases of vote buying, So I just would like to ask, do you have any solution in this vote buying thing, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Your Honors. As pointed out earlier by this representation, Your Honors, indeed there is a great need to revisit our law on vote buying under 261A of the Omnibus Election Code. There is a need to redefine vote buying simply because it does not cover the modern type of how you buy votes. Dati po, Your Honors, wala namang Paymaya, GCash, wala rin naman pong transfer ng pera sa pamamagitan ng cellphone and such other initiatives such as madami pong watchers sa labas ng presinto, watcheran, yan po ay vote buying. So pag tiningnan nyo po yung ating definition, may loophole po kasi na pwedeng maiwasan ng mga individual na nagkukumit ng vote buying. So dapat po ma-plug yung loophole na yon, magkaroon tayo ng modern definition of what vote buying is. Siguro po maganda rin pong karagdagan, Your Honors, yung pong proposal, yung pong bill na nakapending po dito sa House of Representatives patungkol po sa pagtataas ng penalty sa mga mapapatunayang guilty ng vote buying. Pero alam niyo po, come to think of it, if we are going to extensively determine the root cause of why masyadong malalim ang vote buying sa kasalukuyan, Your Honors, is because of the fact that the Comelec investigates. The Comelec acts as the prosecutor. We've determined whether there is probable cause or not. Mukhang guilty. Hanggang doon lang po kami, Your Honors. Hindi po kami pwede magsabi na guilty yan. Ang problem po namin, Your Honors, is that the fact that it's very difficult to build a case. Why? You need a very determined complainant. A complainant that has sufficient evidence, and evidence that will stand the scrutiny of the courts. Kung sa Comelec lang po, we can always determine mukhang guilty to. Pero once the case is filed in court, ang problem po is the court will determine whether there is guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Whether if the evidence as presented, Your Honors, if weighed together, will really point to the culpability of the accused. Problema po, Your Honors, kalimitan, mag-file po kami ng case sa court, pagkatapos ng eleksyon, nagwi-withdraw po ang mga complainants for whatever reason. Number two, yung po mga ebidensya na na-file, minsan nawawala o minsan po ay hindi naman talaga ganun katibay. Bakit po? Sample po, Your Honors. Sa mga amin po mga abogado, halimbawa po, nag-present ka ng video na namimigay. Ang problem po, Your Honors, kung tayo lang pong ordinaryo mga mamamayan, pag nakita natin yung video, guilty yan, namimigay. Pero pag korte na po ang tumingin dyan, hindi po kaagad yun ang pag-determine because the court will still determine sinong kumuha ng video. anong ginamit sa pagkuha ng video, anong oras kinuha, mainit ba, maaraw, gabi. So lahat po yan ay mga tatanungin, and doon po kalimitan nagpe-fail because the evidence will not stand scrutiny of the court. It will not stand the issue of credibility and the issue of admissibility of the evidence. So all of these things considered, that's why it's the reason why it's very really difficult to prosecute the crime of vote buying. And likewise, yung vote buying po kasi it takes two to tango. It does not involve only the vote buyer, but it likewise involve the vote seller. So kung ako po yung binigyan ng pera, gusto ko man po magreklamo, lalo tinanggap ko yung pera, problem po is, baka po pati ako ma-prosecute. So naandun po yung takot talaga na magrereklamo ako, tinanggap ko yun, mapo-prosecute na din po ako, dalawa kami nung vote buyer. And last na po, kalimitan naman po yung namimili, hindi talaga yung politiko. Ang kalimitang namimili yung mga tao ng politiko. And therefore, we need to restudy the cases and our laws because we need to determine may principal ba na accused dito, may accessory ba, mayroon bang accomplice lang, o dapat porket ito ay leader ni congressman ganito, ni mayor ganyan, sigurado si congressman o si mayor yung guilty na yan. We cannot connect that because sir, in criminal law, because crime is always personal to the accused, you have to prove that indeed there is a relationship between the vote buyer and the supposedly principal. It's very difficult really to connect. What is the solution? Legislation po, Your Honor.
For example, with the chair, in one election, nakahuli kami, no, na talagang umibili ng boto. Nakita namin yung pera. Nakalagay yung pangalan ng kandidato ron sa envelope. Pero, ang vote seller is a senior citizen. Kasuhan man namin, hindi makakasuhan mismo yung kandidato. Kundi yung vote seller, nakakaawa, kaya pinakawalan namin. So, sa legislation na iniisip natin, no, can we include the candidate mismo? Even if the vote seller is just one of the leaders?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Under our existing jurisprudence and our existing laws, Congress can always define a crime, and Congress can always determine how to punish a criminal for the violation of an act. So meaning to say, nasa inyo po yun. If we can reasonably connect the vote seller to a principal, to a candidate, then therefore, that candidate can likewise be charged if only we can correct the existing laws that we have by legislation. Pwede po, Your Honor. Kung halimbawa lagi po yung kasama, halimbawa ni Mayor A, then therefore, may mga pictures, may mga witnesses nande, lagi siyang kasama. Siya yung mismong kanang kamay niyan, mapapatunayan. Then, reasonably, namimigay yan, then we can easily conclude if the law will be amended that the act of this one is the act of the principal, that this one is merely acting as the agent of the principal.
What about, Mr. Chair, siguro kinakailangan na rin nating palitan yung contribution. Kasi sa akin, that is hypocritical. I mean, I do not know of any politician who will only spend 3 pesos per voter. Or perhaps in the national election, 10 pesos per voter. I think it is high time for us to really change the omnibus election code on that matter, Mr. Chair.
You are correct, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, sapagkat hindi na po up to date yun, hindi na po makatotohanan. 3 pesos, 5 pesos, and 10 pesos. If a candidate for mayor has 50,000 voters, times 3, that's only 150,000 pesos during the 45-day period of the campaign. That is really impossible that he will be spending only 150,000 pesos. So we were in fact before proposing to increase that to 20 pesos, 25 or 30 pesos as the case may be depending on the position na tinatakbuhan po niya. Para naman po maging reasonable and at the same time, sabi nga po ng iba, magsisinungaling din lang naman po yan eh. But just the same, we are being realistic as far as the law is concerned. So we are still hoping that as far as campaign finance reform is concerned, maybe we are respectfully asking Congress to increase na po natin para naman po hindi naman 3, 5, and 10. Baka naman po pwedeng 20, 25, 30 pesos po.
Mr. Chair, on the issue naman ng postponement ng barangay election, I was with the Appropriations Committee kanina, and I heard you saying that by 2023, the precincts will increase from 107,000 now to 139,000. Am I right in what I'm saying?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, 207,000 presently, 207,000.
Okay. And in 2023, it will become 239,000.
230,000 in May of 2023 and 239,000 in December of 2023. Your Honor.
Therefore, to conduct the barangay election next year would be more expensive than if we conduct the election today.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, by conducting it, by postponing the election this year and conducting it next year, we will be needing additional budget for that. Again, for the record, as far as the Comelec is concerned, if we are going to postpone it by May of 2023, we'll be needing additional 17 billion pesos, less the 7.5 billion pesos that we have right now in our possession. And by December of 2023, we'll be needing 18 billion pesos, less 7.5 billion pesos. So 9.5 by May or 10.5 something by December of 2023.
So, Mr. Chair, ibig sabihin yan, hindi tayo makakatipid, di ba? And besides that, the amount allocated to the Comelec on the barangay election this year cannot even be touched.
You are correct, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, because of the issue of the so-called fiscal autonomy of the Commission election. And in the past, in the 2017 supposed barangay election, when we postponed the barangay election to 2018, there was a continuing appropriation provided for in that law.
Yeah.
So whatever is the remainder of the 8.4221 billion budget that we have right now will be subjected to continuing appropriation in the event that the same will be used, in the event that the SKM barangay election will be postponed.
Therefore, in reality, Mr. Chair, what you're saying now is the postponement of the election actually is not economics but political.
I'm not at liberty, Your Honor, to make such a declaration with all due respect and pardon the excuse your misrepresentation for that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you, sir.
Chair.
Thank
Yun
you.
lang po.
Thank you, Vice Chair Benny. Next interpolator is no other than Vice Chair Divine Yu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone, to my colleagues, and of course to the Comelec. And congratulations to the chairman for the appointment. I just have one question, Chairman, with regard to Component City seeking to be a highly urbanized city. I understand one of the requirements is the plebiscite 90 days, within 90 days after the proclamation of the president. My question is, who will spend for the plebiscite, and is it the whole province will vote for that plebiscite? And if the Comelec is the one who will spend, is it included in the budget of the Comelec? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. There was a case of Umali versus the Commission election. In that case, the Supreme Court decided and ruled that in case of the conversion of a city, whether a component city into a highly urbanized city, then in that case, the Supreme Court said all the population of the mother province should vote for the conversion of that component city into a highly urbanized city. Then that being the case, originally, supposedly, the proponent, which happens to be the city, should be the one to spend. In a plebiscite, it will be the local government unit that will be spending. And therefore, Your Honor, since it will be the entire province that will be voting whether to convert that into a highly urbanized city or not, then there is that problem that the province which may not be amenable to the conversion of that city into a highly urbanized city will not be spending for the expense for the plebiscite, or even for the sake of argument that the component city would like to spend, the question is whether the component city is willing to spend for the conduct of the plebiscite for the entire province instead only of that particular city. As far as the Comelec, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, is concerned, we are willing to conduct any plebiscite so long as there is budget provided for by the LGU, regardless whether it will be coming from the mother province or whether it will be coming from the component city who wanted to convert itself into a highly urbanized city.
That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Divine Yu. And now we're proceeding to the second round with our Deputy Minority Leader, Franz Castro. But may I remind Deputy Minority Leader, Franz Castro, that you only have 2.5 minutes in the second round. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Chair. May kaugnayan ito, Mr. Chair, doon sa electioneering ng mga military, police, at saka yung MTF-LCAC. A lot of cases na yung final regarding to this. So, meron po ba kayong updates or paano po ba kayo nagre-resolve ng mga ganitong cases? Yung mga cases po na dinudulog sa inyo, kailan po ba ito mariresolve yung mga ganitong mga cases po?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, pag po kasi election offense cases, para po sa understanding po nating lahat, this is actually filed before our law department. And the law department will be the one to conduct the so-called preliminary investigation, requiring the respondents to file their so-called sinumpaang salaysay or counter affidavits, and then it's up to the complainant now to file their reply and then the rejoinder in order to complete everything. I will definitely get back to you on this matter, Your Honor, as far as the complaints that you have mentioned and the pending cases that we have right now. We will definitely report to you the status of these cases. I will commit that to you, Your Honors.
Sana po makakuha kami ng updates, kahit na updates, kasi isa rin po ako dun sa complainants, Mr. Chair. Labas po dyan sa mga cases na yan, Mr. Chair, gaano po ba katagal nare-resolve ang ilang mga kaso? Ilan na po ba yung kaso, by the way, na nasa Comelec, Mr. Chair, as of this moment?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, doon lamang po sa atin pong mga election offense cases, katulad po yung inyo nabanggit kanina, yung sa una po yung katanungan, we have at least mga 2,400 pending cases. The reason, Your Honor, is because nationwide po kasi yung tinatanggap namin. Pag po kasi may nag-file ng isang kaso sa isang munisipyo or kahit sa isang barangay lang, it will have to be filed before the Comelec Law Department. And the Comelec Law Department usually will require our provincial election supervisors to investigate, to proceed with the investigation. Or minsan naman po, doon pinapal sa mga provincial election supervisors o sa local Comelec, and they will be the one to conduct the investigation. But the final say as to whether may probable cause, Your Honor, o wala, ay ang main office ng Comelec, more specifically, ang Commission and Bank. So doon po medyo, sa sobrang dami po ng mga kaso talaga, we will readily admit na we were so overwhelmed. Mr. Chair, Your Honors, isang sample lang po. We have a pending 400 cases involving candidates who failed to file SOSE in 2 consecutive elections. Subject po sila, they will be subjected to perpetual disqualification to hold public office. Ang problem po, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, is that they still have to undergo the so-called due process. It is elementary principle that we will have to afford them due process. So, these cases are being resolved by the 2 divisions of the Comelec. Dadalwa lang po ang division namin. At number 2 po, Your Honors, ngayon lang po kasi kami, 7 po kaming miyembro dapat ng Comelec, isang chairman at 6 na commissioners. At kung natatandaan po ninyo pong lahat, ay may 3 pong nawala na chairman and 2 commissioners, and that's why po na kumonti lang po yung miyembro ng komisyon. And so, that is not an excuse. for not being able to resolve immediately the cases. But since kami po ngayon ay 5 na, together with the newly appointed commissioner, but still in a regular appointment classification, then hopefully po we'll be able to expedite everything, Your Honors, after the appointment of the last commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pero meron po kasi itinatakdang prescribed number of days na dapat na ma-resolve ang mga kaso according to the law. So halimbawa, yung isang kandidato nagkaroon ng complaints against sa isang kandidato regarding kung sino yung nanalo, di ba? So matatapos na yung term ng isang kandidato, Mr. Chair, ay hindi pa nare-resolve. So ganun po yung nangyayari. At sa tagal ng pagre-resolve ng kaso, yung halimbawa kandidatong nanalo, hindi na siya nakapag-serve ng kanyang o 1 day na lang or 2 days na lang, may mga ganyang kaso kasi. Kaya dapat makapag-isip tayo ng innovations, pamamaraan para mas madali natin mariresolve po yung mga kaso.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, sa suggestion po, and that's a wake-up call on the part of the Commission on Election. But we would like to promise the Honorable Committee we will resolve immediately the cases. As far as election offense cases are concerned, we had been talking about the so-called constitutional guarantee to expeditious resolution of the controversies. And our Supreme Court had already affirmed dismissal of cases, especially po pagka napakatagal na wala namang kasalanan ng accused or respondent. We are now thinking of dismissing certain cases dahil medyo napakatagal na po na hindi naman kasalanan nila. It may be our fault or because of certain processes. Tungkol naman po, Your Honor, sa issue ng mga kaso katulad ng disqualification at mga protesta. Yung po kasing protesta talagang medyo nahuhuli po yun, Your Honor, na nare-resolve kasi po may mga balotang involved. Lalo pa po yung mga balota na kinukuha pa namin, yung din po yung isang problema sa ating umiiral ng mga batas. Pag po may protesta, pinabibilang yung balota mga balota po ay kinakailangan dalahin dito sa Manila kung yan ay nakafile sa Comelec at dito po bibilangin yung mga balota. Isi-ship pa po yan, pagkatapos i-inventaryo, pagkatapos i-revise po. So talagang matagal, may appreciation of ballots pa po. Yun naman pong disqualification cases, kalimitan po nare-resolve namin sa division level. Ang problem din po sa ating pong umiiral na patakaran, meron pong motion for reconsideration. Under Rule 18, Section 2 ng Comelec Rules of Procedure, the decision of the Comelec Division is not final if there is a motion for reconsideration. So dalawang level pa po. So medyo yung pong proseso na yon, hindi po tumitigil lang sa division, meron pa pong motion for reconsideration. That's why, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, sa haba ng proseso, hindi kagad nare-resolve. Although we really readily admit, mabilis na lang po, we readily admit that there is a period under the Constitution to resolve these cases, 90 days. However po, sinabi na rin naman po ng Supreme Court that this is not mandatory, this is merely directory. But we are taking into heart the provision of the Constitution. We will take note of that comment, Your Honor, of yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marami po mga complaints sa Comelec, lalong-lalo pag malapit na yung eleksyon. Complaints ng mga personnel na overwork, sila, yung mga personnel natin. So tanong ko lang po, Mr. Chair, yung tungkol dito sa mga personnel natin, ilan po ba yung COs at saka yung mga GOs? Meron po bang kailanganin na additional na mga personnel ang Comelec?
Yes, Your Honor, supposedly po lahat-lahat po ng aming mga empleyado ay mga 6,300. Sa kasalukuyan po meron po kaming vacant positions na mga 892 vacant positions. Why po vacant? Hindi po kasi na-fill upan siya, Your Honors, kasi katatapos lang po ng election ay hindi po kasi nakapag-meeting ang PSB, yung Personal Selection Board. But ngayon po, unti-unti na po kaming nagpapamiting at pinupunan yung mga vacancies po. JOs po namin 552, COS 160 po, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
So, mapipilapan po ba ito in the near future? Yung 892 vacant position?
Definitely, Your Honor, we intend to fill them up. And in fact, Your Honors, we are proposing a reclassification within the commission, main office and field offices. Kasi po, napakadami na pong positions, Your Honors, na hindi na po applicable sa present time. So kinakailangan i-adjust yung mga positions, including the salary grades. Isang example po, Your Honors, and we would like to bring this up. bring this to the attention of the Honorable Committee. Katulad po, Your Honor, sa mga lawyers namin. Yung mga lawyers po kami, hirap na hirap po kami makakuha ng mga lawyers. Bakit po? Salary grade 18 po ang entry level sa amin. So, yung po mga ibang government offices na may kailangan ng lawyers, ang tataas po ng kanilang salary grade. Sa amin po 18. So, paano ka naman po papasok sa 18 kung ikaw ay isang lawyer na napakaganda naman ng track record? So, competitively po talo po kami sa ibang mga sa ibang, kahit po sa PAW, kahit po sa Office of the prosecutors. So, lagi po silang doon muna, tsaka na lang po sila pumupunta. Tapos, ang taas pa ng mga qualification requirements po sa amin na mga trainings, samantalang ang pwede mag-apply sa amin mga bagong lawyers. So, we are presently undergoing the so-called reclassification of our different positions.
Hopefully po, ma-fill up na po itong mga position. Last na lang, Mr. Chair, I'm wrapping up. Nakinig din po kasi ako dun sa CA confirmation ninyo, Mr. Chair, at nagtanong isang senador na kung magkakaroon daw ng isang line doon sa out of office ba ito na sabing ganun, I will not support any organization that advocates violence or unlawful means to achieve its goals to overthrow the government of the Republic of the Philippines. So, okay po ba kayo dito? Parang sinasabi natin kung okay kayo dito, di pwede rin maglagay ng line na hindi ako magnanakaw sa gobyerno pag napasok ako sa gobyerno. So pag ganito, necessary pa ba to yung mga ganitong line sa mga out of office or whatever? Kasi given naman na talagang pag pumunta ka sa gobyerno, hindi ka mag-advocate ng violence, terrorist or whatever, di ba? Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Actually po, yung naging katanungan ay para sa Certificate of Candidacy po. Kung napapansin po natin, meron pong mga declaration doon that I am a natural-born Filipino citizen, etc. hanggang number 14. And so, ang suggestion po baka pwedeng ilagay po yung sa number 15 that I will not advocate violence or etc. So, kasi daw po, and we agree naman po, Your Honor, na nasa batas na po natin yon kahit po sa Republic Act, sa amin pong Comelec Resolution 9633 o 9366 na nakalagay po doon na kahit sa party list at saka sa political parties that they will not advocate any violence or any act to undermine the government of the Republic of the Philippines. So kasama na po yun. Pwede naman po talaga in fairness hindi po mailagay yun. Pwede rin naman pong ilagay yun. Wala naman din pong nagbabawal. And siguro po ang gagawin na lang po namin, Your Honors, doon ay gagawa kami ng isang sentence that will be a catch-all sentence. Katulad din po ng mga binabanggit. It will be a catch-all sentence so that it will not discriminate as against one organization, one group, kahit pa hindi direct, kahit pa ang dating implied lang, so that it will not cause undue harm doon naman po sa organization. We are so careful with that, Your Honor, simply because the commission election is always impartial and should be independent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Minority Leader Franz Castro, for your interpolation. We now proceed with the next interpolator from Kong Jill Bongalon. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, I will no longer interpolate, but after several hours of questioning and interpolation from our colleagues, I move to terminate the budget briefing of the Commission on Elections. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any second?
Chair.
So there's a motion to terminate the budget hearing of Comelec. It's been seconded. So the motion is now carried.
Move to adjourn. Ano pa?
Since there's a motion to terminate, we now suspend the budget hearing for the fiscal year 2023 budget. Thank you very much.